This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
All righty, there he is, the man, the myth, the legend. That is Manny Navarro. How you doing, my friend? How you hanging? You doing good?
Doing great. Oh, I mean, I'm back home, relaxing now, back in the swing of things with practices and whatnot. So I'm ready to go, man. I'm ready for the spring game on the 16th. I'm looking forward to it.
Any truth that there were lots of NFL teams asking to sign you instead of any of the players at the pro day
This
here in Coral Gables?
this is true. They're looking for better website writers, on the website. So they were looking to see what they could work out with me, and we'll see. We might have something coming around the corner.
So they're going to pay you to be a homer, is what you're saying.
Right. Yeah, that's what they're going to pay me to do.
That's always, man. I don't think people realize that's a tough job for a journalist because all of a sudden you no longer can be objective and you have to kind of walk a line that everybody knows that you have to walk it. And then when there's the obvious going on, you can't address it. And it's really tough for those, hometown writers that work for the team.com website, man. That's not an easy thing, dude. It's not.
It's not easy to do, and I venture to think that it's hard to come back from that, to go from being a team website writer to all of a sudden finding a job at a newspaper or a publication that is going to take you back, because you kind of enter the PR world. You kind of flip to the other side, and you have to keep your distance, and that's what we're taught in journalism school. And once you flip to the other side, I think there's no flipping back. But there's probably examples. I just haven't seen many yet.
Just out of curiosity, before I get into the football stuff, basketball, the Caputo loss.
Yeah.
And we kind of were, that's been the talk for years that when Jim steps down, that they probably have their guy in place in Caputo. And it's interesting how a George takes shape in all of this, right? You get one from George Mason, and now you lose one to George Washington.
Right.
And by the way, for those of you that are FAU Owls fans, Mike Jarvis came from there also to coach at FAU. But anyway, your thoughts on the loss of Caputo, and after a Final Eight appearance, how much will that hurt the program? Because I heard he was such an integral part of everything that they did, including recruiting and coaching.
No doubt, huge loss. I mean, this is the guy who has worked side by side with Larrañaga for years, and really behind the scenes, he was the guy who was the one that connected, I think, best with recruits and young players, and was able to kind of coach them through sort of their struggles. Right, when you get to college, you're all world in high school, but when you get to college, you have that rough adjustment period where you gotta sort of accept the role that you're not used to having. Right, being that sixth guy, or being a guy who doesn't score a lot or doesn't shoot a lot. I think Caputo was very integral in that regard of having those conversations with those kids and saying, look, your time is going to come. This is our vision for you, etc. It hurts. But, Jim Larrañaga is 72, and eventually Miami's going to need to find a replacement. And I think Caputo put in enough good years here where certainly the administration, I think, would more than likely go after him to bring him back to replace Larrañaga if and when that happens.
Yeah, no, and I would imagine that they'll try to do that, obviously. But if Caputo does well there, bigger schools also will be looking at him just like Miami. And it's the problem with this is, like, Leonard Hamilton and Stan Smith were kind of the same age. Mm-hmm. So Stan made a decision in his career that he was cool with being the right-hand man of Leonard. And so then he stayed with Leonard and moved around with him from place to place. Caputo's younger. So it's like he's got a future, and he's got to start working. You don't work all the way to be an assistant coach. For Stan, he's fine with that. For Caputo, I can understand wanting to get a shot at becoming a head coach overall. And that's the difference in that combination. And I don't know if people look at it that deep to think about the Hamilton Smith thing and now Larrañaga Caputo, but the age difference is what the generational difference is what really, this is what's costing Miami their best assistant.
Yeah. But listen, that's what's going to happen. You go to the Elite Eight, those coaches are going to get hired, right? And I think he's had other offers before. This isn't the first team to sort of come after him. And eventually, you get to a point in your life where, hey, you got to make the best move for yourself. And it sucks for Miami, but this is a nice place to be and a nice place to coach. If you're an assistant who wants to move into that kind of a role, so I'm sure Larrañaga, it's not going to take him long to find a guy to bring in here to help. But Caputo knew the system and he knew the way Larrañaga coached and was great with the kids. And so we'll see the repercussions of that with the transfer portal and everything else in the weeks and months ahead.
Was there somebody told me once that I don't know if it was FIU or FAU, but they tried to take Caputo and he just chose not to go.
I'm not sure which of the schools it was, but I had heard there were several schools that had come after him over the years, and he just was always loyal to Jim and didn't think any of those jobs were the right fit for him. And I think now is the time for him.
Yeah. Well, we wish him the best because, man, he was really, really good for this program overall. All right. What's it called? Talk to me a little bit about Leonard Taylor because it looks like there's buzz and people are expecting him to be a monster this year. Why?
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, Warren Sapp was down at practice recently, and I think watched him and was like, "Hey, I got to get with this kid. I got to talk to him because from a pass rushing standpoint, this is the kind of kid I think he's been wanting to work with. Not that these guys really want to work with kids, but every now and then somebody will catch their eye and say, "Hey, man, this kid's special. He can be something. I want to be a part of that." And I think that's kind of what's happened. Everybody sort of noticed that this kid has a different gear, a different level of play. I think Miami, as talented as he is, being there Wednesday for Pro Day, having lots of conversations with different people on the staff, they're looking for help, I think, at defensive tackle in terms of just run stuffers, consistency, talent. No knock on Jared Harrison Hunt or Jordan Miller or Leonard Taylor, but I still think that the way Mario looks at it from a roster standpoint, they know, hey, we got to add some more at this position. They're always looking to add. Oh, that's why I told you this is everybody's like, oh, what do you think of this roster? I'm like, dude, this roster is far from done. Like, to me, it's still going to be tweaked here. And there's this kid, Akeem Mesidor out of West Virginia, who on Wednesday, actually yesterday, I think the head coach at West Virginia came out and did a press conference talking about how sad he was. I heard the day before that there might be some tampering charges and so forth being brought forth of how this thing works. So we'll see how this pans out. But I know Mesidor is on Miami's radar. I think there's some other schools that are interested in him as well. He was an honorable all Big 12 honorable mention, but he's another defensive lineman, big defensive lineman that they're looking. But they want to pair Leonard Taylor up with somebody special. I think Jared Harrison Hunt is first on the list, but beyond that, it's more of a depth type issue.
I'm with you there. By the way, complacency is the disease that kills all.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Mario understands that. And anybody that runs a business, anybody that has a career, anybody that wants to get better in life, the moment you get complacent, that's the moment you died. And that's the moment you allow everybody else to catch up to you. The moment you feel you don't have to do anything else anymore, that's when the peak happened and now the valley begins because you did not keep your edge. And when you're in a competitive state, if you don't stay competitive the entire time, you will fall out of place. And Mario knows that. So that's why I don't think you'll ever see complacency. And he also knows that in order to beat Alabama and to beat Nick Saban, do you think Nick Saban's ever complacent?
No, not in the least. Always looking to upgrade.
He's been around him the entire time. He knows it, right? So he knows that, okay, that's who I'm not competing against Virginia Tech. No, I'm competing against Alabama. Okay, I know how Alabama thinks. I know how Kirby Smart thinks. I know how these guys think. I have to be just like them. And that relentless way of doing things that, okay, we're good right now, but no, how can we get better? I think that's what keeps you on top of everything in anything. I don't care if you're Apple, I don't care if you're Mario Cristobal, and I don't care if you're the Big O radio show. Find a way to get better, find a way to do more, because if you don't, somebody else is going to do it.
Absolutely. And what I'll tell you about Mario, I think from a coaching perspective, the staff is in place. He's got that elite staff in place. I've had a lot of I'm gonna have a story coming out here soon, but just talking to former players, coaches, people that have been out to practice here over the first half of spring, and just the overwhelming sentiment is coaching wise, they have everything in place they need. He's running a fast paced practice. They've got 40 guys out there. Who cares about compliance, right? Just have as many people out there working with these kids to make them better. And they're going to act like Alabama from that perspective. But I think talent wise is where they're still lacking. And the overwhelming sentiment I got is offensive line, linebacker, and defensive tackle. Those three areas. When you look at being on Alabama's level, that's where they've got to make the biggest improvement. It's a really hard area to improve because those are the areas that are scarce in terms of elite players.
Where are they right now? At least, how do they feel with the progress of what they're doing with the offensive line? Because there are reports that they're looking good. It's like there's no games being played, so I
No.
don't really know that anybody's looking good until they're
Well,
actually really hitting against people that don't like you on the other side of the ball, and then we'll find out for 4 quarters how good you are. But what are you hearing about the offensive line? Because like the Dolphins, we're expecting drastic changes from the Canes and the Dolphins at that position specifically, because both made the kind of changes that you're supposed to get
mhm.
a change happening there.
Well, here's what I would say about that. I think they're 5, 6 players deep at that position where you say, okay, is it good enough to win an ACC championship? I think talent wise, they're probably 5 or 6 good players on the offensive line that you can say the way that they're being coached up by Mirabal, the way Cristobal is involved in those conversations and the coaching. Everybody, they've got 4 offensive line coaches essentially with Cristobal and the analysts that are out there. So those guys are getting worked. They're being taught well, but they got to go out there on Saturday and push people around. And Mario, being honest with me, when we talked about it, he's like, we didn't move anybody's asses. Like there was no ass movement with with the line of scrimmage. And Jeff, Gaddis wants to run the football. He wants a power running game. He wants to line up with 2 backs. He's going to throw a tight end back there every once in a while to scare teams. And unfortunately, because of injuries, you don't have Jalen Rivers. He's arguably your best offensive lineman in terms of that, run blocking and so forth. You don't have the other kid who was hurt last year. I'm forgetting his name now, Campbell. He's still not back yet. You got a bunch of young, talented freshman guys going into second year that shouldn't be playing. And then you have the guys that are back. And Zion Nelson is a great pass blocking left tackle. He's got great feet. He does his job as a left tackle, but moving piles, run blocking, he's not icky. No way, shape, or form. Okay. I think that's an area that, again, if they can upgrade that position somehow through the transfer portal, get more guys in here that are going to move bodies and be physical, he's going to do that. And I think, a lot of the coaches that I spoke to who watched them practice these last few weeks, been to other high school coaches. I'm talking about high school coaches have been to Georgia, have been to Alabama, that have been to other places because they're taking kids here and there, and then they go out to Miami. It's still the most noticeable area. It's up front, offensive line, defensive line. You want to be a championship team, you got to have championship caliber players at those spots, and I think that's still what's lacking.
Okay, all right. Is there anything on the transfer portal being talked about on the O line?
I don't have any names per se. I think there may be somebody else from Oregon who could be on the way over here at some point. That's kind of the pipeline, obviously, because those guys played for Mirabal, and I would think if they decided to pull out, that could be somebody else that comes in. But no names officially yet.
Nice to see the Canes are going back to Lockhart. It's called Drive Pink Stadium, but at least they're continuing the tradition of scrimmaging in Lockhart. So folks will be able to see them in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I think it's important to get the community involved. Let them come out and watch practice, right? You want the stadium filled on game day. I think they're selling a lot more tickets. There's going to be more people showing up for games this coming season because of Mario and Tyler Van Dyke and the excitement people have for the program. But these kind of events where the public can now interact with players and see them, sign autograph, whatever it is that they can do, that's what made Miami fans happy. And COVID kind of took a lot of that stuff away. hopefully, this spring game, there'll be a couple of those kind of events with COVID kind of dying down a little bit here, where people can maybe get closer to players again, because I know that was something that they wanted. And new coach, a lot of excitement. You want to drive ticket sales up. I think you do these kind of things.
All right. What are you working on The Athletic, my friend? So folks
Right.
can check you out, baby, because they should subscribe to The Athletic and support you and all the Canes coverage and all the 60,000 stories you write every single day.
Well, I have the rundown of what happened at Pro Day. So I know we kind of teased it a little bit here in the opening when we were talking, but I heard, for instance, that there may only be one Hurricane drafted, Bubba Bolden. I heard that from a couple different scouts, and I know Charleston Rambo wanted to run a better 40 than he did. He's still not sub 4.4 or sub 4.5, which for a guy like him who's 6'1", 170, 180 pounds, when there's guys running faster than you and you're a fringe number 6 or number 7 receiver, don't play special teams. You need that 40 time. So we'll see how that works out for him. I hope Charleston's a good player in my mind. I hope he can find a spot on the NFL roster when he gets drafted, but we'll see. But right now it looks like Bubba Bolden, potentially as high as a day 2 guy if a team really likes him. His 40 time was good enough. I think he ran a 4.47 in Indy, and did some good things with the bench pressure and people, physically he's back from that. So I have a story on that, and then I'm going to have sort of a Canes Confidential, like I said, where I speak to a lot of people who've been out at practice to get their opinions and thoughts on certain subjects. That'll be coming out soon. And then we have a whole new blitz coming out next week on all the college football programs that are trying to rebound from bad times. And I'm writing about USF. I spent yesterday talking to their athletic director, their football coach, Jeff Scott, a couple of their players, and that'll be an interesting series for people who want to read about the USFs, the Nebraskas, those kind of teams that were once good in college football and have fallen off.
Tennessee's in that mix too?
I think we have a Tennessee article as well. Yeah, there's about 12 or 14 teams in there that we have. I think Virginia Tech's another one. Teams that at one point or another kind of rose to some heights in college football where they were competitive. USF, of course, number 2 in the country back in 2007 under Levitt, and they were ranked in the top 25 2 years in a row when they had Quentin Flowers a couple years ago. So, and now they're just, I think, 1 or 2 win team the last couple of years. So,
listen, man, when I was younger, and Tennessee was actually, I'm a fan, but I'm a college football fan. So I always said I want to go to an Iron Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go to Texas A&M and check out the 12th man. The horseshoe. The big house. Those kind of places. Tennessee was one of those places, man. When it was packed and it's Rocky Top and it's Reggie Cobb running your ass over, and rest in peace, Reggie. I knew Reggie, and we just lost him a couple of years ago. He was a scout for the Niners for several years. Good dude. But those days of Chris Carter it is Chris Carter, right? Is it Chris, or what Carter was it? No, it was Pickens.
Chris.
Pickens, Carl Pickens.
Yes.
Those kind of days of Tennessee when they were really good and they were entertaining. You're like, damn, dude, I want to go one night to a game
in Rocky Top,
go check it out and experience it. That kind of stuff. Now it's like, I can think of a couple of other places before I go to Tennessee. Why? Because the program's been dog crap for so long now. It's not as sexy anymore to go to that element right now because they're losers. They're not even winners anymore. You know what I mean? And we talked about this. The day they fired Philip Fulmer, they were done. They never recovered from that again. And let me tell you, Central Florida had their little moment in the sun, and they've kind of taken a couple steps back, and they're trying to recapture that. And they have to be careful too on that too, if they able to recapture that kind of magic, because look at USF, man. USF had it going, dude. And
they did.
Damn, their players were going into the league, and they were going in as high picks, dude.
Jason Pierre-Paul, right? I mean,
the other defensive lineman that went in the first round too.
They had a couple. I have my list here.
Yeah, they had a couple guys, man. That was like, you're like, holy crap. Okay, now they're recruiting big time players, and it's just falling off the wayside. It's not easy, man. I always say this. This is the thing that happened to Dennis Erickson, and this is what happened to Larry Coker. And this has been my theory always for college coaches. You've got to be able to coach, obviously, and develop. You've got to be able to be a recruiter. But then you've also got to be able, and this is the magic one, you got to be the right custodian of the program because you've got to be able to maintain. And the custodian maintains the level of play, the level of recruiting, all of those things. Coker and Erickson, they could coach, dude. They could develop players.
Yep.
You know, both guys. Coker got loaded rosters, won. Should have won a second title if he wasn't ripped off with a call. Dennis Erickson won 2 titles in his first 3 years with Jimmy's guys. But once their players took over the program, it went downhill.
Yep.
Why? Because those guys knew X's and O's, but they weren't custodians. They weren't like the maniacal Nick Saban that can stay on it and stay on top of it consistently because to bring it full circle, there is no complacency.
Yeah.
And when you don't have any complacency in life, you can grow. And that's the problem. Sometimes you get to a point and you become that fat cat, and that's when you end up going downhill.
Yeah.
And that's been the problem. And you've got to find the coach that can do all three. Yeah, he's got to be able to recruit. Yeah, he's got to be able to develop. But my brother, he better be a custodian. He be able to maintain all the way through because there's something special about being Don Shula for 30 years and Belichick for so long and all the great ones, Popovich, you name it, it doesn't matter. There's a reason why they're able to maintain it because complacency was never, ever in sight.
Yeah, and you don't see that in Miami's head coach whatsoever.
No,
I mean,
no.
he's working 24/7, pushing 24/7, always looking to get better. So
Cristobal has a chance because he's never complacent. He's got a chance. No doubt about that. All right. Follow him on Twitter at Manny_Navarro and catch his exceptional work there at The Athletic. Manny, as always, my brother, thank you. Have a fantastic weekend, my friend.
you too, man. Take care.
You got it. There you go. He looks younger too. I think it was the Fountain of Youth water.